My career as an artist has been a bit of an anomaly, and I think that's down to the fact that I'm not very easy to categorize. Sometimes that can be detrimental in that when it comes to media, it's much easier to talk about an artist if they're easy to classify. But it's also been to my advantage because I think when a fan finds me, if they like me, they seem to really like me, and that makes for a really passionate and loyal fan base. My latest record, which is called Fruit, is a great example of this, of how a modestly sized fan base can provide a lot of support for an artist. So before Fruit, I had just got done with my album Electra Heart. I had received quite a lot of commercial pressure in making that record. And this time, I didn't want to write for the radio anymore. I didn't want to kiss people's asses. I just wanted to make the record that I wanted to make. And I believed that I could do that without having to compromise things and play the game. So what I did was I made my own strategy, and basically my manager and I went to my label and presented it. It was an unusual strategy because it wasn't a singles-led campaign, it wasn't chasing hits or top 40 radio. So this campaign was called Fruit of the Month. Now, the basis was that if you pre-order my album, I'll send you a new fruit or song every month. And with that song, I will also give you a brand new visual world to indulge in. So that was, GIFs, videos, new photos, scratch and sniff vinyl, a whole world which you could experience the album through. And that's one way that I love connecting with fans, is building this visual world. So I believe that if I proved to people the strength of the material, song by song, then I would hope that they would trust me enough to buy the record, and they did. The campaign as a whole is an example of how a modestly sized fan base can provide a lot of support and success for an artist without them having to compromise anything. So despite getting no radio play, Fruit went to number 8 in America. It sold about 45,000 records in its first week. And it also went top 10 in the UK. So what it comes down to is not how many fans you have, but what type of fans you have. And I'm very, very grateful that I have this kind of fan base. The last section of my talk is about the songwriting industry. It's changed quite a bit over the past 10 years. The way that people write records and the type of music they write has changed because basically, the music industry doesn't make as much money as it used to, and the labels are very mad about that. So this has had a knock-on effect on how people write songs because the focus is on selling records and getting money. So the pressure to write a hit is even bigger. It means that people now write for radio and commercial success more than they write for just artistic or political or social expression. And this, for me, is really damaging because it results in a huge lack of variety on radio, which is something that I would love to ask you guys about later on. Mainstream radio is still one of the most successful platforms to launch music on, but it's one of the least challenging. And I find that so frustrating because when I listen to national youth stations in the UK, I feel like I'm hearing one type of music and one type of theme or lyric, largely anyway, and that lyric is very much about getting drunk in a club or look how amazing I am. Now, I love to get drunk in a club. I love those songs, and I love pure pop as well. It's not about genre, but it's just more about having variety on radio. And I think when you listen to radio and there's only one type of song playlisted, it basically drives home the message to artists that you need to dumb down your material in order to be successful. And I don't believe in that. I think it's so, so damaging. My own experience in the songwriting industry really began at the start of writing Electro Heart. So my first album, I'd mainly written on my own. I'd done a few co-writes, and then my label saw a potential there to be bigger. And I was very, very strongly encouraged to write with very successful, talented American songwriters. So after about 6 months, I was just like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And I went through a rigorous time of doing a lot of different sessions. And it was kind of like my version of university. It was really intense, sometimes not very fun, but very eye-opening. And I feel like my main thing that I took away from that was that it did teach me how to expand myself creatively when songwriting, but I hated how there was an expectation for your individuality to be ironed out in order to succeed. So I was basically in the wrong place. I was working in the wrong place. Now, this isn't to say that I'm against co-writing or co-writing sessions. I'm against songwriting by committee. I don't think it encourages creativity or freedom of speech or individual thinking. And last night I was thinking actually of examples of artists in the past who have been political or have just had that kind of essence to them that I believe is lacking today. And I thought of singers like Billie Holiday, David Bowie, Bob Dylan, Joanna Baez. Those types of artists are really hard to come by. And I know that we have to change, and we do have amazing artists these days who are political and they have voices, but it's the idea of being risky or taking a risk is not encouraged at all. Needless to say, I decided to write Fruit completely alone. It felt very much the right decision creatively, but I also wanted to address this assumption that women don't really write the music, at least in pop. It's like, if you look a certain way and you have a certain visual, do you also write the music? Like, I feel like men are very much credited more than women. And so with this, there was nothing to hide behind. It was like, well, you can see the credits. So that was my way of addressing that and hopefully encouraging other people, whether it's male musicians or female musicians, to write on their own more often and to rely on themselves creatively. I'd like to end my talk today by saying that I believe that pop music can be powerful and it can be political. Songs are great storytellers and a way of capturing a moment in time. And music can be used as an instrument for progression and for change. Thank you so much for your time and your attendance.